Scottish and Ulster Regiment Royal Artillery.
I know
it's a
we're
close
gonna
support
die.
light gun Army Reserve Regiment based in various locations, isn't it, around Scotland?
That's right. So these are from the Army Reserve. These are, if you like, part-time soldiers. So they come from many civilian occupations, as is common throughout the Army Reserve. These, no doubt, would have been warned off some time ago in case of this eventuality, and they have been called in rapidly to do this, and they're doing a wonderful job, as you can see.
It's a very high-pressure job, isn't it? Because, as you say, this is such an important event. It's not one that you want to get wrong, isn't it? It's
You don't want to get wrong, which is why they've got more than one gun available in case it doesn't work, if they can find the next one immediately.
It could not be a better day for it in Edinburgh, could it?
That's right, and of course we're looking at the guns. If one could see the castle from a distance, you'd see just what a remarkable location that is. I gather Edinburgh Castle is the most besieged castle in the United Kingdom. 26 sieges in 1100 years, apparently.
And the gunners are apparently from 207 City of Glasgow Battery.
Yes, it's always important with the Royal Artillery to talk about the battery, because that's their sort of identity. This is, as I say, from the Army Reserve, but part of an artillery regiment, 105 regiment. That also will be firing in the Army.
We have another gun in 15 seconds. Sounds like gun number 2. Officer in charge.
You can see it being loaded there.
And that will continue every minute until we have finished 41 guns. But let's turn now to the Tower of London and see what is going on there. And this is the Honourable Artillery Company, oldest regiment in the British Army.
Yes, there are various claimants for that, and there's certainly a very old regiment of the British Army, again from the Army Reserve. And they have a variety of roles, one of which is to do ceremonial gun salutes, but their operational role is as special surveillance operators, so it's quite a serious Army Reserve unit. They're based in the City of London, so they have it's certainly very high, and we've got a good selection today, actually, to go from certainly very high profile. Still has it has a guard from the Household Division because of the presence of the Crown Jewels. It's been a barracks, it's been a very famous prison, of course, Bloody Tower, Traitors Gate, they're all here.
And very deep connections with the Duke of Edinburgh, who was a member of the Honourable Artillery Company.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember attending the Pikemen and Musketeers commemoration with him and the Queen some years ago, and he certainly seemed very much at home there. Clearly knew quite a few of the people.
And they did a 62-gun royal salute to mark his 97th birthday at the Tower of London.
That's right. I talked about the formulae for multiplying up the numbers of rounds, and if it is just done at the Tower of London, then it's 62 rounds.
This is quite confusing to anyone who doesn't understand how things work. There is a rhyme and reason to all of it.
There is a rhyme and reason, but in a way they're running over that to have an average and go for a common 41 today.
It's going to scare.
As you say, this unit provides target information and intelligence.
Reserve.
And the Duke of Edinburgh, as you say, was one of those. What would have been his involvement on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think he was probably as a ceremonial figure, as a member of the HSC.
But as he was
the flashlight, good.
Members of the areas of the armed forces. So, if you had the Duke of Edinburgh on your letterhead, what could you have expected from him?
Well, as is common with all members of the royal family, they like to know things about the organisation that they're on the letterhead of, and so they wish to be kept informed. They like to express private opinions and so on, which can be extremely helpful because, of course, their view is very broad across all sorts of organisations. So the Duke of Edinburgh himself was quite exacting in knowing how things should happen, and although he didn't like fuss, he did like things to be done properly. So that does involve fuss sometimes.
Well, you did the ceremonial at William Kate's wedding, didn't you?
That's right.
So you know very well how much fuss and how much organisation preparation is required for these. They don't happen by magic, do they?
It doesn't happen by magic, and of course he would be the first to understand that as well. So in a way he doesn't want fuss, wants it done correctly, but understands that you can't move, straight into those two positions without a lot of work.
Quite a tough taskmaster, would you say?
Yes, but very supportive and very understanding in the sense of actually knowing what it was like.
Well, let's go to Portsmouth now, Bill, as the salute continues. And why Portsmouth, and what can we see here?
Well, Her Majesty's Naval Base Portsmouth is the home of the Royal Navy's surface fleet, so much of the Royal Navy that people know about. So we're going to see two ships at sea firing today. Well, they're both based from Portsmouth, so this is a very important naval base that supports the surface fleet.
And this is the South Railway jetty, and we're going to see them firing from 3 saluting cannons again. So
yes, so this is a sort of different weaponry. This is a gun designed for saluting, and I can see that they've adopted the fire-resistant material instead of the normal COVID mask, which is.
And as the First Sea Lord said, he was a close friend to the service for over 8 decades, and he leaves a legacy of indomitable spirit, steadfastness, and an unshakable sense of duty.
Yes, given the number of decades.
There is competitiveness, isn't there, between the different services, let's face it.
Yes, I can't quite believe I just said what I just said.
I know. As a military, as an army man, I think that kind of.
But you cannot get away from the fact that he did serve in the Royal Navy, played very important parts in other parts of the armed forces as well, especially in the Household Division where he was the senior colonel.
Back to the Navy, meanwhile, because we're going to go to Plymouth now, to Her Majesty's Naval Base at Devonport. And this is the largest naval base in Western Europe. And it's been supporting the Royal Navy for a long time, since 1691. So what are we looking at here, Bill?
Well, we're looking at another saluting cannon that's going to do the same thing as at Portsmouth. But this is another major naval base for the Royal Navy. Home of the amphibious capability, some of the nuclear work happens here. And very important to the local community, of course.
Yes, indeed. It's 650 acres there, something like 15 dry docks, and supports around 400 local firms as part of its role within the town. Very important to the Royal Navy here.
Yes, I mean, any major military base brings a large economic benefit to its local area. That's right. And certainly Portsmouth and Plymouth are predominant in that, as is Naval Base at Clyde and other places in Scotland.
Let's talk a little bit more about his time in Dartmouth Royal Naval College, because that's where he famously, their families were obviously well acquainted, but that's where he made his famous first proper meeting with the Queen and Rupert Even there in Cardiff. Now we are in Hillsborough, Belfast, Hillsborough Castle there, 105 Regiment Royal Artillery. Bill, what are we looking at here? What are the guns?
Well, again, this is the 105mm light gun, the in-service light howitzer. This is an Army Reserve. We should always mention the battery, 206 Ulster battery. So again, part-time soldiers. All of them have civilian occupations and other lives as well, but they come together to do military training and indeed operations, and in this case, the ceremonial gun salute.
Here's another indication of COVID restrictions, all of them, of course, wearing masks.
That's right. I mean,
such as life is at the moment.
Such as life is.
And they used to do annual gun salutes to the Duke of Edinburgh on every birthday.
Most royal occasions are marked by gun salutes, especially in London, but quite often at the other saluting stations. And Hillsborough, of course, is the Northern Ireland official residence of Her Majesty the Queen and the residence of the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. It's where the Anglo-Irish Agreement was signed. It's a very significant place in Northern Ireland, so quite right. It's not really a castle, it's more of a mansion.
And we're going to go now to Guernsey, which was a late addition. We weren't originally expecting Guernsey to be part of this, but they have decided that they will, and it's the only British fortress to have been fired on by the RAF. Explain.
I believe that's the case. Of course, it's a fortress in the Channel Islands. The Channel Islands were retained by the United Kingdom once England lost Normandy to the French, and so this has been a long-standing castle. But in the Second World War, along with the Channel Islands as a whole, it was occupied by the German forces. and as a result was attacked by the Royal Air Force, and it's probably the only United Kingdom British Isles castle to be attacked by the Royal Air Force.
And the guns there, which look more like what a civilian would regard as a cannon.
Yeah, well, I think that's. I think that.
And the Royal Gibraltar Regiment. Not such a beautiful day there, it looks like. And this is a regiment of the British Army that's defended Gibraltar since 1939. For those of us who are not familiar with Gibraltar's place, would you explain some of that as well?
Well, Gibraltar was captured in the 18th century and ceded to the United Kingdom in perpetuity at the Treaty of Utrecht in the early 18th century. And it's had a British military garrison ever since, until the 1990s, when the regular forces were withdrawn, and it is a Royal Gibraltar Regiment, which now provides the military presence. It's a partly regular, partly reserve unit. It has an artillery component for saluting, but it's largely infantry, and it also provides the ceremonial support to the Governor of Gibraltar. This is another superbly spectacular location. We're not seeing the best shot of it now with the grey sky and the water, but of course the Rock of Gibraltar towers 400 metres above the Strait of Gibraltar, which is one of the most busy shipping lanes in the world. This is a crucial location for the United Kingdom and the Royal Navy.
And again, the public being kept away, but there are some officials there marking their respect. The Royal Gibraltar Regiment, also known as the Barbarians.
Right, I can't enumerate
So I'm reliably informed.
Well, I don't
right?
know. I mean, of course, I wouldn't want to say there's any connection, but of course, on the rock are the Barbary apes.
Yes, so maybe that's it. And the Duke's connection with Gibraltar.
This is a key Royal Navy location, and of course for the war in the Mediterranean this was absolutely key as well. Support to Malta, they used to run convoys from here to Malta, and the Duke of Edinburgh, of course, in that famous action against the Italian fleet, was in the action in the Mediterranean. He must have been in that role, and I've certainly visited since.
He was mentioned in dispatches for his action in the Second World War. And was that the Battle of Matapan that you're referring to?
That's right. So this was a battle against the Italian Navy in which he controlled the searchlights of a battleship. It's his highest military rank, of course. You don't have an equivalent in the Army and the Air Force.
It's definitely a wonderful honour to be given. And we're going to return to Woolwich now.
And although the public have been asked to stay away, the people of Woolwich who see these men and women and the horses indeed out on their streets once or twice a week are lining the fences and the gateways surrounding the closed environment of the Woolwich Barracks here. Now, it really is a spectacle to watch, and as we take in the men and women behind us, you realise just the guns are in place with a good 10 minutes to go today. Back a few seconds.
Through, he's holding the cane under his arm. He's the time counter today, making sure that each of the 41 guns are fired on the minute, every minute. He was awarded the Military Cross for his services in Afghanistan, fighting off the enemy. He bravely crossed the bridge to hold off the enemy and save the lives of his fellow soldiers. And just two to his left, this is Lieutenant Rachel McElwraith, Miss McElwraith Monday to Friday, because she's an additional needs support teacher in Livingston. She is counting the rounds today to make sure that everything is kept to very, obviously, military precision here today. And just in front of Lieutenant McElwraith